Hi everyone and welcome to today's first lesson on topic B4, Bioenergetics. Today's first lesson is on photosynthesis. As with all the other biology lessons, you will need a pen and some paper. So if you do not have one in front of you, please pause the video and collect one now. So today's challenge is to describe the reaction of photosynthesis, and today's aspire is to explain why photosynthesis occurs. So today's starter is a quick recap. So what I would like you to do is draw and label me a plant cell. And I would like you to write down which three organelles, so that's parts of the cell, are only found in a plant cell. Remember, a plant cell is far more complex than an animal cell. So I'm going to give you 4 minutes to do this. Off you go. Right guys, so if we go through the answers then please. So this is a plant cell in front of you. Hopefully you've managed to write this down. I'm going to go through all the labels with you. So we'll start at the top. So the cytoplasm is the jelly-like substance that contains the nucleus, the ribosomes, the vacuole, the mitochondrion and the chloroplasts. The nucleus is the part that controls the functions of the cell. The next one is the ribosomes, and that's where proteins are made. The next one is the vacuole that stores cell sap. The next one is mitochondrium, where respiration takes place. The next one is the cell membrane, and that controls what goes in and out of the cell. The next one is the cell wall, which it actually keeps the plant rigid and upright. And then the next one, the last one, is the chloroplast, and that is where photosynthesis takes place. So the organelles that are found in a plant cell that you won't find in an animal cell are the chloroplast, the vacuole, and the cell wall. So I'll just recap what they actually do. So the chloroplast is where photosynthesis takes place, and obviously we know that only plants photosynthesize because they have to make their own food. The vacuole is where the cell sap is stored. And then the cell wall, remember plants do not have skeletons like we do, yet they do remain upright, and they remain upright because their cell wall is made of a rigid structure called cellulose, and that helps them actually keep upright and able to get sunlight so they can carry out photosynthesis. So now we need to start talking about photosynthesis in a bit of detail. So what you need to know about photosynthesis is that it is a chemical reaction, and it is a chemical reaction that occurs in the plant cells where plants make their own food. Remember, plants don't have the luxury like we do of having legs, and we can obviously go down to Tesco and buy a loaf of bread and a bottle of milk. Plants can't jump out of the ground and trot to Tesco to get food, so they have to make it themselves because they are always anchored in the ground. So they do that by this process of photosynthesis. And photosynthesis happens in the chloroplast of plant cells. Now, in the chloroplast, there is a green pigment called chlorophyll. That's what makes the leaves of plants green, the fact that they contain chlorophyll. And it is in the chlorophyll that absorbs the light energy that is needed for the reaction of photosynthesis. Now, for photosynthesis to occur, you need water, which plants take in through their roots, and you need carbon dioxide, which the plants take in from the underneath of their leaves into the cells for photosynthesis. So with carbon dioxide and water and light energy, then the plant is able to make the food that it needs, which is the sugar of glucose. So glucose is made by photosynthesis, and also as a byproduct of the reaction, oxygen is actually made, and a plant will actually release oxygen back into the atmosphere. So now I have a task for you to do. So I've just explained to you the process of photosynthesis. So what I would like you to do is use the keywords below to write me a word equation for photosynthesis. So the words that you have are glucose, light energy, water, carbon dioxide, and oxygen. And what I would also like you to do is try and add the symbols. Now, if you wish, you can then go on and balance that symbol equation. And just to help you, I've given you the symbol for glucose. So that is C6H12O6. Water, carbon dioxide, and oxygen you all should be familiar with. So you should be able to write those down quite easily. So I'm going to give you 2 minutes to write me down the word equation and the symbols underneath. Off you go. Okay, guys, so the answers that you should have then, the word equation for photosynthesis is carbon dioxide plus water in the presence of light energy gives glucose plus oxygen. And the symbol for glucose, as I mentioned to you before, is C6H12O6. The other ones that you should know yourselves are that carbon dioxide is CO2, water is H2O, and oxygen is O2. Now, again, if you wanted to be even better and actually balance the equation, how I get students to remember this is I call this the devil's number. So we know the devil's number is 666. So if you look, there is a 6 in front of the carbon dioxide, 6 in front of the water, and 6 in front of the oxygen. So just remember that for your exam, 666, because in your exam you must remember this balanced equation. So what I would suggest that you would do now, I'm going to give you probably another minute to do so. Underneath your word equation, can you please make sure that you write the balanced symbol equation? So I'll give you a minute to do that. Off you go. So another question for you now. In chemistry, you have probably already learnt about exothermic and endothermic reactions. So an endothermic reaction takes in heat energy from the surroundings, and an exothermic reaction gives out heat energy to the surroundings. And now I remember it is exo exits, so it leaves the reaction. Now photosynthesis is either endothermic or exothermic. Thinking about the sun shining on a leaf, what do you think photosynthesis is? Do you think it's an endothermic reaction or an exothermic reaction? And then just write me down a little idea. So how do you know that? So I'm going to give you a minute to answer me this question. Off you go. So hopefully you have written down that photosynthesis is an endothermic reaction, as it does take in energy from the surroundings. If you think about the sun shining down on it, it's taking in that heat energy and therefore is an endothermic reaction. Okay guys, so a quick quiz now. So this first question is an exam question. All these are exam questions. And it says, what are the two products of photosynthesis? And is it A, B, C, D, or E? So you need to choose two of those that are the products of photosynthesis. I'm going to give you 15 seconds to write down your answer. Off you go. Okay, so hopefully you've got glucose and oxygen are the two products of photosynthesis. Next question. What is the correct balanced equation for photosynthesis? So I want you to have a look through all of those. Remember what I said to you earlier about the devil's number. And I want you to write me down whether it's A, B, C, or D. So I'm going to give you 15 seconds again. Off you go. Okay, so hopefully you all wrote C. So it's 6CO2 plus 6H2O gives C6H12O6 plus 6O2. Okay, so the next question, what type of reaction is photosynthesis? So aerobic, endothermic, exothermic, or oxidation? So A, B, C, or D? I'm going to give you 15 seconds. Off you go. Okay, so hopefully you all have the answer written down that photosynthesis is an endothermic reaction. Okay, so the next question is what is the name of the chemical that makes the leaf look green? So you've got a choice of cellulose, chlorophyll, chloroplast, or chromosome. So write down A, B, C, or D. I'm going to give you 15 seconds. Off you go. Okay, so hopefully you've all got the answer written down, and that's chlorophyll. Okay, so we have now last question, and we have labels A, B, C, D, and E. A comes out of the leaf into the air, B is the energy from the sun, C absorbs energy, D goes into the leaf from the air, and E is taken up by the roots and transported to the leaf. Now A, B, C, D, and E are the words that are read on the right hand side of the page if you need that help. So I'm going to give you a minute to assign the labels to A, B, C, D, and E. So you have 1 minute. Off you go. So hopefully the answers that you have written down is that A was oxygen, so that comes out of the leaf into the air. B was light, and that's the energy from the sun. C was chlorophyll, which absorbs energy. D was carbon dioxide, so it goes into the leaf from the air. And E was water, and that is taken up by the roots and transported to the leaf. So the main purpose of photosynthesis for a plant, guys, is to make glucose. So I want you to write down some ideas about what plants use the glucose for. So I'm going to give you 2 minutes to write down some ideas for this. Off you go. Right, guys, so let's go through the answers then. So I bet a lot of you have written down that glucose is used to help the plant grow. You might have written down that it's the plant's food, but we need to be more specific about what the glucose is being used for. And these examples you do need to know for your exam. So glucose is actually used then for the plant to respire just like we do. So they need to be able to produce energy to be able to do all the functions that a plant does on a daily basis. And obviously respiration, like it does in humans, occurs in the mitochondria. Now, the glucose in a plant gets stored as starch in the roots, the stems and the leaves. And starch is actually an insoluble material, so it's very good for storing inside a plant, so it doesn't turn into other things very easily. And starch is used to produce lipids, and a lipid is basically a fat and oil. So that helps when a plant makes seeds, so like a sunflower, for example. And it's used to make cellulose for strong cell walls. So remember, a plant doesn't have a skeleton like we do, so it needs to be able to stand upright. And cellulose is a very strong structure that makes the cell walls. So that is also made from glucose. And glucose also combines with nitrates that come from the soil to make amino acids. Now, amino acids join together to make proteins, and that's what helps the plant grow. So just by glucose alone will not actually help the plant grow. It needs to combine with the nitrates in the soil to make the amino acids to then eventually make the protein to help the plant grow. So now we need to talk about what factors affect the rate of photosynthesis. So what factors affect how fast photosynthesis is occurring inside a plant. And the factors that affect the rate of photosynthesis are light intensity, carbon dioxide concentration, the temperature, and the amount of chlorophyll that is present in the cells. Now, if any of these factors are limited, it will limit the rate of photosynthesis. So that's an important thing to know. So if any of these factors above are limited, then the rate of photosynthesis will be limited. Okay, so an exam question now, guys. So you're going to need to write this down on your sheets of paper. So a scientist investigated how temperature affects the rate of photosynthesis. The scientist grew some orange trees in a greenhouse. They used discs cut out from the leaves of the young orange trees. The scientists used the rate of oxygen production by the leaf discs to show the rate of photosynthesis. The leaf discs did not produce any oxygen in the dark. Why? Okay, so it's a 1 mark question. I'm going to give you 1 minute to write this down. So the leaf discs did not produce any oxygen in the dark. Why didn't they? So 1 minute, off you go. Okay, so hopefully you have written down that the leaf discs did not produce any oxygen in the dark because light is needed for photosynthesis, or if you also written down that no photosynthesis was then able to occur. Right, so next question, green plants can make glucose. So plants need energy to make glucose. How do plants get this energy? So I'm going to give you 2 minutes because it's a 2 mark question. So plants need energy to make glucose. How do plants get this energy? 2 minutes, off you go. Okay, guys, so how plants get this energy is they get it by trapping the light, and it gets trapped inside the chlorophyll, which is inside the chloroplast of the plant. So you get 1 mark for saying that the light is trapped, and then by the chlorophyll, which is obviously inside the chloroplast, gets you the 2nd mark. And the last question, plants can use the glucose they have made to supply them with energy. Give 4 other ways in which plants use the glucose they have made. So you've got 4 minutes because it's a 4-mark question. So give 4 other ways in which plants use the glucose they have made. So 4 minutes, off you go. Okay guys, so the question was to give 4 other ways in which plants use the glucose they have made. So you can have any of these for the marks. So to make starch, and that obviously gets stored, to make fats or oils, to make amino acids, remember that combines with the nitrates to make proteins or enzymes, and to make cellulose to make the strong cell walls. Also, you can have any of the allowances that are also at the bottom, so for active transport or any other named organic substance such as DNA or anything like that. And that's 4 marks in total. Okay, so the last thing to do today is to copy down today's notes of the lesson. So photosynthesis is an endothermic reaction which uses light energy to combine carbon dioxide and water and produce glucose and oxygen. The simple equation is 6CO2 plus 6H2O gives C6H12O6 plus 6O2. Plants can use glucose made for respiration to release energy, to produce cellulose for strong cell walls, to produce starch for storage. Remember that starch is an insoluble molecule. To produce fats and oils to store in seeds, and combined glucose with nitrate ions that come from the roots to make amino acids, which then can be used to make proteins. Remember that light, temperature, chlorophyll and carbon dioxide are all limiting factors for photosynthesis. So I'm going to give you 5 minutes to copy down these summary notes. If you need any more time, please guys pause the video. Off you go.